and welcome to the City of Tallahassee workshop. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Today is Wednesday, October 16th. We have 2 items on our agenda, but first and foremost, Mr. City Manager, do we have any agenda modifications for the workshop?
No, sir, we do not.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, we are now on citizen input on the agended items. Citizen input on the agended items. Obviously, you will have an opportunity to speak on the agenda item itself. If you cannot stay with us for the duration of the meeting, we give this opportunity now. Mr. Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We do have a few speakers, Mayor.
Great.
I will call them in just a minute. I'll also let anyone else who is here and wishes to speak know that there's a form that looks like that. If you'll fill that out, they're on a table behind me, and then somebody in the back can bring those forward to me, and we'll call you as well. Our first speaker is William McLeod, and he'll be followed by Ted Thomas. As he comes to this microphone in the middle of the room, I'll let speakers, I think they may all be veterans of this, but let them know we're giving you 3 minutes for your comments. So if you'd give your name and address, there'll be a light in front of you that'll turn red at 3 minutes, but I'll also give you a heads up.
Thank
Go
you.
right ahead.
Mr. McLeod, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm William McLeod, Cantella & Company, 1725 Capitol Circle Northeast, Suite 201. I was raised in Tallahassee and lived here most of my life. I've been a member of the Citizen Review Team, volunteer for over 20 years, and like many other volunteers, I continue to be committed to being a part of the Citizen Review teams. Because I've seen over the years how impactful the CHSP process has been to our community, and I've been seen firsthand the amazing men, women, and organizations working every day to address some of the numerous challenges in our community faces. As a Citizen Review Team member, our primary role and responsibilities cover several areas. What we try to do is facilitate an equitable process, ensuring that all agencies are treated fairly. Over that 20-year period, unfortunately, I've been a part of some of the situations that have faced or been in the newspaper. The good thing about that is because of the way, instead of being at a 20 or 30,000 foot level, we're right on the ground. Because what the review teams do is they actually go on site, talk to the agencies, talk to sometimes the participants, the people that are receiving services, and see firsthand what's going on. And that gives us some amazing insight. Besides the fact the applications are extremely detailed, we get the opportunity to go over and say, well, look, if you can't do the basics, how can you provide certain services? And what I like about over the 20 years that I've been a part of it is that we've seen where small agencies are doing outstanding work, but need a little additional support. And where agencies that have marquee names that often are given a pass because of their name aren't really doing the work that needs to be done in our community. And that's really what's unfortunate. And because we get to go on the ground and deal with them face to face and ask hard but fair questions across the board, we tend to get a better outcome for our community. Other things that we try to do is ensure that decisions made by the CRT teams are made in the best interest of our community. We want accountabilities not only for the clients that are being served, but for taxpayers. It's also important that we acknowledge that the size, like I said, of the agency is not the issue here. It's whether or not they're doing the work. And often, like I've said, over 20 years, I've seen multiple situations where agencies that are really small, on small budgets, doing exceptionally good work, and agencies that are huge, that should be doing exceptionally good work, are falling short, not having audits in place, not having people that can give you direct answers about how do you consider something miscellaneous that's 10% of your budget and can't answer that directly. That's not acceptable, not for our taxpayers. Other things that we do, I like to highlight, we attend mandatory grant review training. Unfortunately, Pat will not give us a pass regardless of how long they've been volunteers. So every time we have to do that. Each volunteer, and I'll have to admit, the time is important because even though we've done it for years and years and years, it gives us an opportunity to, one, share our experiences with other people, but more importantly, we learn something new each year as well. Right. So as much as I give her heartburn about it, it is the staff has kept us on track for the last 20 plus years.
You're at about 2.5 minutes.
Oh, I got plenty of time. I got only 6 more pages. So y'all I'm on
to the mayor.
Now, one of the things, each volunteer serves on one of the 10 human services funding categories. All teams are diverse, and by that, they're talking about you want to have somebody on the team that might have a background in finance or accounting, that might be human services. Because one of the things I'm not very good at, and anybody that's been on a team with me will tell you, I am not a touchy-feely person. I don't care. They bring out the little kids to talk to me. I don't care. I'm all about the numbers. They'll tell you. I'm not an easy grader, and I'm not. Okay, but that's not what I'm there for. They have people to balance me off, which is good, because, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm about the numbers. I'm wanting to know if your 990s are correct. Have you done your audit? Have you addressed issues in your audit? Are you financially sound? That's where my strength is. Now, I've gotten a little soft over the years, but the reality is the experience of being on a team that has diverse background helps. I was the team captain for Promise Zone. We had members that lived in the community, were grown up in that community, and also brought a diverse background to deal with some of the issues that the Promise Zone has. And that adds a lot of value that you can't get at the 20,000-foot level. Being on the ground, seeing what's going on, having the direct contact at meetings, going to site visits, because you can put anything you want on paper. And you can look at the paper and say, oh, this is great. When you go to the site visit and you realize they have no files, they have no clients, they have not actually been doing their job. Again, I've seen agencies that have $2 and $5 million budgets that had 3 years in arrears on just doing an audit. That's not acceptable for the city of Tallahassee.
You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you. The other things that we deal with is...
I need you to wrap up the comments if we could, please.
We review all applications and material. We ensure that team members fully participate in the decision-making process. We have to have 100% consensus, so it's not a majority. Everybody's got to be in agreement, which means you learn to compromise. You may not like something, but at the end of the day, we've got to all be on the same page.
Thank you.
Thank you very
so
much.
Appreciate it. And by the way, thank you for your service on the
absolutely.
on the process
20
committee.
years.
Next speaker is Ted Thomas, and he'll be followed by Amber Tynan. I spoke out of habit earlier. There is no light in front of you, but I will tell you when you get close to 3 minutes.
Mr. Thomas, good to see you, sir. Your name and address for the
Thank
record.
you, Mayor. My name is Ted Thomas. I live at 1469 Vucray here in Tallahassee, 32308. I came before you looking at this issue. Was brought to my attention by a friend of mine who is in the nonprofit services. And the question came up for me as well as he, that have we passed the time by which individuals should be applying for these additional fundings that suddenly came available? My concern is this. I believe that those agencies that have filed, applied, met the qualifications, the rules, the regulations, I think that we need to allow them the respect that they need for the process that they've served. And I think back to some of my earlier situations with Children's Home Society, which I served on for almost 20 years, that we have to wait in line, had to present our case, we had to prove our case, we had to be audited, and then we had to show those results with the dollars. I think that's still in effect. It still should be in effect. And I would say that those folks who've come to the bar now need to know that those folks have done that. And I think those folks need to be respected for what they did and how they did it. So I urge you, the commission, mayor and the commission, take a hard look. I don't think it's time. If there's additional dollars that have suddenly come up in your budget, I would suggest you go back and look at those agencies that have been approved and see what those needs are, how great a need they are, and take those dollars and spread it to those agencies so they can meet the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Next speaker is Amber Tynan, and then Stanley Sims.
Ms. Tynan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner, Mayor, Mr. City Manager, for the opportunity to meet with you all over the last couple of months about your support of the human services ecosystem. I represent United Partners for Human Services. We're located at 2477 Tam-Gimbel Place, 32308. Sorry for that. We're a membership organization that really supports the human services not-for-profits in our community to build the capacity for them, but also make sure that they're financially sound and sustainable, especially when there are public resources utilized to support them. Many of our members are here in the audience here today to show their support, and we want to commend you for taking our concerns seriously about the outside agency funding process and putting together the Bridge to CHSP proposal that you all will consider today. But we'd also like to ask, as part of that process, each entity being considered meet similar guidelines and documentation requirements that those that go through the CHSP process meet, so that they're better successfully set up to participate in that process in the future. As part of that process and as a partner with both the city and the county, we would love for you all to remember that UPHS can help serve as a vehicle to build that capacity for each of these organizations, but also tie them in to our network of professional agencies to leverage resources to be able to allow those funds to go further. We believe that grassroots organizations as well as neighborhood-based organizations are a critical piece to the entire human services ecosystem, and there's nothing that we can't do without them. But we also need to work more collaboratively and better coordinate our efforts together, and we can help facilitate that conversation. We're grateful that we will have the opportunity to vet the upcoming needs assessment when it does become available, and while we anticipated seeing that in September, we're optimistic with the new timeline that it will not have any adverse effects with the upcoming cycle that will start here in February of 2020. As outlined in page 3 of your agenda item, and as William explained, one of the critical components of that process, and is truly an equalizer for most of the agencies that participate in that, is the site visits. And we want to make sure that if anything, out of all of the recommendations that do come down, that does remain intact. We recommend that any proposed changes that do come up for consideration be vetted with Pat and her team, because this is what they do every single day, day in and day out. They manage all of the contracts for the human services entities that are a part of this process and would have a good understanding of how the implications would play out based on the recommendations that are put forth. And lastly, as this continues to evolve, we would just love the opportunity to work hand in hand with an accreditation process potentially to really showcase the value of high accountability standards for each of the entities that do receive funding, but also showcase a great ROI for funding for those that are tax-paying dollars in Tallahassee proper. So again, thank you so much. We appreciate all that you do.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley Sims.
Happy birthday, Dennis. Happy birthday, Dennis. I had to do that because he's an auditor and no gifts, so I just had to give him that for free. I know that's something he wouldn't probably buy. So my name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. Happy birthday, Dennis. First of all, I just want to tell these people who go out in the community and work so hard, volunteer, underpaid, understaffed, thank you. Each and every one of you. For those who pick up paper to picking up children, thank you. Now for y'all. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. What I'm saying is every round goes higher and higher. Our city is in critical need. A lot of critical needs. Critical needs of transparency, equality, and I'm going to steal Commissioner Elaine's Bryan word, a clear path of process. We need you, and you need us. I think that we are moving in the direction of working in unison, but we're not there yet. And the only way we're going to be able to get there is to let uneducated, unpolitically connected people like me get a chance to talk. Now, I'm not going to say it as eloquent as Amber do it, but I'm among these people, and I represent them. And so I need a process that is clear. I need a process that I have faith in and confidence in, that even when I get the letter no, it's not because I wore a white suit after September. It's called communication clears up major distortions. So now I'm not sitting here thinking because my name ain't on that list, but I done put in a proposal. And I've heard zero communication from staff. And I'm so thankful, Mr. Reese. Y'all record this because I'm going to give Reese a compliment. Cameras rolling, lights, action. Reese, I want to thank you for agreeing to meet with me on Halloween. Dress up, because I am. I'll be talking to you. But we need a process that when everyone applies, that there is some type of communication to let them know.
You're at 2.5.
I'm 2.5. I got 30 more minutes. I thought you was closing me down.
That'd be seconds.
Oh, okay. And so I just want to I also want to thank this here new commission, because you have taken on a lot of major challenges, and this is one. And our needs in our community have grown, and I'm asking that we think a little bit more outside of the box of how we can support our nonprofit agencies. Y'all gonna clap for me?
Thank you.
That's a low
Next
clap.
speaker is Tim Center. He'll be followed by Dr. Hollifield. That's the last two speakers that I have, Mayor. If there's someone else who wants to speak.
Mr. Center, it's good to see you, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Tim Center, 1218 Camellia Drive. And I'm actually not here on behalf of myself, but on behalf of Barney Bishop for a moment, who is home taking care of his wife who had surgery yesterday, who wanted to share the following comments regarding the opportunities to improve our human services process, which is hard to improve because Pat Holliday's got a pretty good handle on the whole thing, and we really are thankful for her. Michael Campbell's doing a pretty good job too. But more importantly, as you guys go forward, we're really hoping that needs assessment also includes a gap analysis, so that we can understand not only what are the needs of the community, but what is not being served by those in the nonprofit field. Also, that as funding goes forward from this body and from the county, that outcome-based objectives be put in place regarding the contracts with the nonprofit providers who are in place to serve those who need it most. We also want to make sure that the outcomes are aligned, the funding is aligned with those outcomes appropriately. And so, in other words, instead of trying to fund everything, fund those things which are a priority to the community. You could have the biggest bang for the buck. And on the closing, the issue is accountability. When it all comes down to it, there are a number of hoops that Capital Area Community Action Agency and many other nonprofits have to jump through in terms of being sure that we're appropriately registered with federal government, state government, and everybody else, and doing everything we can to provide accountability and assurances to our funders. And we believe that no matter who is on the table to be funded, that they should be meeting those same criteria. There should be a uniform playing field. And so we encourage you to follow those tenets, and we really appreciate everything you guys do. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Center. Appreciate it. Dr. Hollifield. Good to see you, sir. Your name and address for the record, please.
Dr. Edward Hollifield, Longleaf Court. What are we doing? I mean, really. You just had United Partners come up here. They get money every year, and then they turn around and charge $200 registration fee for their conferences. I mean, that's madness. Suppose somebody don't have $200. They're going to take out a loan to go to a conference at United Partners? And then what about the audits? Has Big Ben Cares ever been audited? And if so, by who? All they have to do is ask for money and they get it. Why? Because they're white, they're leadership Tallahassee. So all they have to do is ask. You got babies in Leon County. Rick Miner was complaining about some adult stores on Monroe Street or whatever. What is obscene is what happens in local government. That's obscenity. You got some of these boards got people on them that are so rich they don't know what to do with the money. You take Ho Chi Leon. They now have Southern Strategies. Y'all know what Southern Strategies is? They could buy the whole state of Florida and still have change left over. And with that kind of power, why did they come to the city for money or the county? And guess what? Y'all give it to them. And they wouldn't even support me on breastfeeding. What kind of madness is this? And there's Southern, whatever they call it, Foundation. That's a scam. That's Ho Chi Leon. Look who the registered agent is. It's Ho Chi Leon. It's just that Hotel Leon is basically a real estate company now. With all them lobbyists and real estate people on their board. TMH, $271 million. Did anybody at the city or county ask the basic question, what will be the health outcome consequences of this $250 million expenditure? Is it going to help asthmatics who can die in the emergency room because they ain't controlled? What about preventive health? They spend all that money on intensive care units because they want a sick population. Keep them in intensive care units full.
You're at 2.5.
So this is a scam. It's really a scam. All these people should be audited. They should demonstrate a genuine need. Shouldn't go to people like Hochul Leon that has all these lobbyists on their board. Southern Strategy Group, what else do they need? Which is in bed with the Liggett Tobacco Company. You know, that's one of their clients. Liggett Tobacco, 4th largest tobacco company in the country. And Hochul Leon is in bed with these people?
You're at 3 minutes.
Y'all need to get real. Seriously.
Dr. Holyfield, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other speakers?
No other speakers, Mayor.
All right. We are on item number 3.01, Human Services Division and CHSP History and Process. I'll turn it over to the city manager and his team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm going to be brief. We've got a good bit of material we want to cover. I want to introduce Pat Holliday, and I think everybody knows Pat. Let's give her a round of applause. We've heard good comments about Pat. Pat's been instrumental in what we've done. CHSP has been around for more than 20 years. It's a model program. It's been nationally recognized. We want you to hear more about that. And then we've got a recommendation at the end to talk about merging some of our outside agency funding, which is what you expressed earlier in the year when we did our budget process, into this CHSP process, and then talk about what we do with those non-human services. She's joined by Michael Parker, our Director of Community Housing and Human Services, and they're going to tag team this presentation. I'll end my comments there, turn it over to Pat, and we'll just go right through it.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity, Commissioners, to present to you an overview of the CHSP process.
Pull your mic down.
Down. Thank you. Okay. Prior to 1996, the city, Leon County, and a United Way used to hold 3 different separate processes with no coordination at all. Therefore, there was a lack of community-wide planning and coordination, resulting in duplication in services as well as gaps in services. Therefore, the City Commission at that time, as well as the Leon County Board of County Commissioners, formed a multidisciplinary team to look at the problem and figure out a solution. As a result of that effort, in 1997, the United Way, as well as the City of Tallahassee and Leon County, formed a Community Human Service Partnership. CHSP has been recognized as a best practice by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's also helped us being granted 2 All-America City Awards as well. I also want to talk about the overall benefits of CHSP, and I will try to speak as quickly as possible because I know we have a limited amount of time. What are the benefits of CHSP? There are many, but I just want to highlight just a few of those. It reduces the workload, and that was one of the main reasons for it, so that agencies don't have to apply to 3 different grant processes. It provides a structured, coordinated process to review grants, look at the capacity of agencies, assess community needs, and then fund programs accordingly. It also, which I think is most important of all, it facilitates citizen involvement in a decision-making process. As you can see, many of our citizen review team members, they feel a sense of ownership of the process, and I think that's really wonderful. The staff, the city staff, as well as the county staff assigned to coordinate this process, we facilitate it. We're not directly involved in the decision-making because we want to keep out biases, and we want to make sure that the process is fair. I just want to give you an example. In 2018, we had 80 citizen review team volunteers The other thing that's very important, we try to make sure that every single, and I will refer to the citizen review teams as CRT, we try to make sure that every single one of them represent this community, diversity in every gender, race, every occupation, any variables that we can. As a result of that, in fact, 51% of the volunteers, last year represent people, minorities of Asian, Hispanic, as well as African American, while 49% were of white. 23% were male, so we need to increase the male. And then we had, of course, we had 7% were females. As William indicated earlier, they are required, every decision that they make, 100% consensus, which means that sometimes we literally stay there for 12-hour days. That is not uncommon. They will stay there. They're committed. We already tell them up front, don't make any plans to go home that night on that deliberation day. And so as a result of that, last year, the volunteers put in an average of 4,300 hours of service to CHSP. 4,300, I want to emphasize that. And if we use the independent sector rate, which is they use a standard national rate of $24.69, I think, for last year, the calculation of the value of our volunteers was over $100,000. Now, if we use like William's salary, for example, it would be a lot bigger. and I always say,
he even dresses the part.
Yeah, exactly. So considering that we actually have medical doctors, we have lawyers, but even more importantly, we have people from the community themselves who are very invested in their communities. As he said, people that actually live in the South City area. We try to recruit people from every aspects of life, and that's so important. The process is based on equity. Everyone is treated fairly and held to common standards. And last, I think also importantly, it's totally transparent. We operate within the Florida Sunshine Law, and our great attorney here, Ms. Jackson, helped design this process for us so that we can make sure we're completely in compliance with the Florida Sunshine Law as well as the Public Records Law. Everything we do is advertised and is open to citizens. Some of the major elements of the CHSP process, and I was supposed to give him indicators. As he has stated, we have 10 human service funding categories. CRT is assigned to each team. The 10 categories represent a continuum, what we call in the social work practice, a continuum of care. And at the time that it was designed, it is based on identification of major areas of need that affect our community. You can see for yourself some of those areas, all the way from children's services to services for persons with disabilities, seniors, basic needs and emergency services, etc. We added, starting in the wheel itself represents, that you can see depicted on that slide, it represents the major steps in the CHSP grant process. Starting in 2018, the CHSP process was transitioned to 2-year funding. This reduces the workload on agencies and promotes the sustainability. I think that's very critical. And I just wanted to get you to think about that. Imagine if you didn't know from year to year if you could maintain your staff. Also imagine, most importantly, if you had to wonder if you could provide an elderly person their monthly supply of Insure that keeps them alive. And that's why it was so critical for us to go to a 2-year funding cycle. Also notable, CHSP staff, we provide ongoing technical assistance. We have provided technical assistance to agencies who are even thinking about coming into CHSP. All they have to do is request it. We give technical assistance when they're doing their application intensively, and we also give them technical assistance even after they are granted the award or not, because we want to build the capacity of the agency, because the overall goal is to make sure that we have quality services for residents. I want you to understand, too, that poor people deserve quality services, too. That I want to be real clear about that, because sometimes we think we can do make allowances, but they need services. People who are vulnerable populations, they need quality organizations who have the capability of providing quality services. The Promise Zone category was added a few years ago, and it targets at-risk communities impacted by social and economic risk factors such as poverty, crime, and food insecurity. As a result of that, for example, we've expanded the food capacity in the Promise Zone. We actually, through the America's Second Harvest, we were able to give an additional 1.4 million meals last year to the Promise Zone residents. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is the CHSP funding and its limitations. The city, as you know, contributes general revenue dollars as well as community development block grant dollars and Change for Change funds. Change for Change is a program that we've had since 2004. We implemented this in 2005-06 in the CHSP. It allows customers to donate money in that program, and all of that money, 100% of that money, is allocated through the CHSP process. All of that money is put on the Basic Needs and Emergency Services team. I want citizens to know that we do not keep a penny of that money. All of that money goes directly to delivering services, the most fundamental basic needs, food, insure for seniors who are on special diets, housing for children, for youth, etc. Since its inception, most notable about the Change for Change program is that so far we've allocated an additional $1 million through that program. In 2018, I want to talk about briefly the limitations of CHSP. In 2018, with the departure of the United Way of the Big Bend, is that the CHSP fund itself was reduced by $1.9 million. In accordance with that, last year, the agency's requests for funding through CHSP exceeded our fund by $1.8 million. I want to quickly kind of point you also to some of the economic and social impact of CHSP, because we have to really understand why is it important. I want you to, I know a lot of you have thought about a safety net, but this is critical. We have a lot of working poor. We are a service-oriented job community. And therefore, many people are making minimum wage. Many people do not have health care or child care. So through CHSP, they're able to get subsidized food every month. They're also able to get subsidized child care so that they can remain working. This is critical. And I want to highlight just a few of the slides that you can see on your up here. Regarding CHSP, some of the facts about CHSP that I think are very important. Over the past 10 years, through our process, we have allocated $55 million. We also last year served approximately 44,000 people in this community, all areas of Leon County. 20,000 people were able to get basic needs and emergency services support through the program. And also notable, 46% of the services that were delivered from CHSP funded programs went to Frenchtown residents, Bond, and as well as South City. So it's interesting that the volunteers are targeting these services to the most needy communities here. The other thing I want to talk about is the agencies, what they bring and what nonprofit agencies bring to our community. Last year, they spent over $152 million. They were able to garnish over $100 million in state, federal, and other types of grant dollars that they were able to bring into our community. Very important. $35 million from these agencies, and I'm specifically talking about CHSP-funded programs through these agencies, went to direct services to our citizens. They also employ 2,000 employees. If they were a collective body, they would be the 8th largest employer in this community. And last of all, as far as another key fact about us, is that it's also notable that most of the funding through CHSP addresses poverty. As you know, when we did a survey of our residents, 55% of them indicated that poverty was one of the 5 most important aspects and issues impacting our community. As I wrap this up, I also want to kind of, there's another slide that I want to bring your attention to because it really shows a snapshot. We did an analysis of CHSP and what we do, who we serve. I want to kind of sum some of those really important points. We have up here, so you can understand the slide, 127,000. This represents duplication. The way I tease out that 44,000 residents is that we anticipate that each citizen would have accessed at least 3 different services and programs funded by CHSP. We want you to know also we did not put the information regarding food on there because we don't require residents to identify themselves and you don't have to fill out an application if you're hungry. That would be humiliating. So we don't require that. But what we do is look at how many meals that we are basically giving out into the community. That represented over 7 million meals in 1 year that went to our community. As you can see through on the map, that citizens throughout the Leon County access our services. We can't just say that we have pockets. We have certain areas that we have identified as having poverty and high needs, but we also have individuals and pockets of communities throughout this area of people who they have needs and they need services. I also want to emphasize, too, that we serve, because of where we are in the Big Bend, we're the biggest city in the Big Bend area, we serve many outside counties that also come in and they work here. And so they also get services from our community as well. Notable, as you can see on the slide, too, zip codes regarding zip codes 32301, 32303, and 32304, which looks at the promise zone in some of our areas that we've already identified as having some of the highest poverty rates. 58,000 services people were served in those areas. The client racial composition last year of who was served through CHSP funded program represented 70,000 Black African Americans and 40,000 whites. And remember, I said those are duplications, but they give you a statistical indicator of who is actually getting these services. The other point is 18% of the clients were seniors, and almost 27% represented children and youth. In closure, I wish to thank the Commission for your continued support of Human Services. We appreciate all of the support you give us and the attention. I also wish to thank all of the citizen review teams who have tirelessly donated their time for over 20 years and many, many more. I also like to thank William McLeod for taking time out of his busy day to come and present to you. And most importantly, I like to thank the nonprofit agencies and the grassroots organizations who tirelessly serve our community every single day. And now I would like to give the floor to Michael Parker, who will present the remaining portion of this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. So earlier this year, as part of your budgetary discussions, you had directed the city manager to bring back a strategy for dealing with outside agencies that have been historically funded through the CHSP process. I want to acknowledge that Robert Wiggin and his staff have worked with us to try and look at the different agencies that are being funded, and we're presenting you with a strategy about how we think we can categorize those agencies and put together a process, which is what you asked us to do, was to come up with an orderly process about how we handle this in the future. And essentially what we're going to do is I want to discuss in a little bit of detail about how we're going to divvy these agencies up, some of them which we'll recommend go into the CHSC process. With this caveat, all the agencies that are in your outside agency budget have been funded for the current fiscal year, so what we're talking about is a transition for the subsequent fiscal year. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about a bridge program, which was to address one of the other issues which came up during your deliberations, was that as a means to help agencies that may not quite be ready for CHSP funding at this point in time, and also for agencies, because we're going to a 2-year cycle where something might come up during the course of that intervening year, that give them some opportunity to get access for assistance. And then also I want to talk a little bit about an emergency program that we're suggesting in here for agencies that may encounter situations unencountered during the year. And then lastly, I'll point out that a number of the agencies that are on the outside agency funding list are actually going to be our vendors. They provide a direct service for the city, so they really should be funded by the agencies that are associated with them. Next slide. So for those agencies we've identified 6 agencies on that list which, by the services that they provide, can qualify for CHSP. And so in fact, one of the agencies that's listed on that's currently funded through that process is a CHSP agency. And so what we're going to recommend for those 6 agencies would be that the funding that's currently being provided in this year would be rolled into the CHSP process, and then they would be directed to participate in the upcoming CHSP cycle for future year funding.
And Michael, will they also be recommended to go through the United Human Services Partnership training?
Correct.
Well?
And in fact, they will be all the agencies that are being reached out to right now as far as the training process. And that was one of the things I was going to talk in detail about this bridge program. As Pat alluded to, her staff as well as UPHS historically have worked with agencies to try and get them in a position to be competitive and be able to reach the standards of the CHSP program. And the Delta Omega Kappa organization or foundation is a great example of that. Did I get it right?
I was about to say
Kappa Omega, I'm sorry.
Almost. I'm going to send you correct.
I'm sorry, I apologize. But that foundation is a good example of one of the success stories. Many of you are familiar with it. We've worked with them in the Providence community. They're providing a service there. So they entered into the CHSP program 2 years ago. Initially, they were a new organization. They worked with the staff. They got their paperwork in order. They got their capacity built so that they could be funded in the first year cycle, and now they're actually being funded in the second year cycle. And that's the same kind of skill sets that we would be providing both through UPHS as well as staff for agencies that are currently being funded to help them make that transition. And then I'll talk a little bit about the bridge program if they're not ready, okay?
Michael, is there any touch points with any?
Just so you know, by the way, Commissioner, we actually encourage all of our organizations to get involved with UPHS as well as any. We actually have a cost center in our contracts built into the city as well as the county contracts. We will pay for their membership to both of those organizations.
Okay, thank you. I knew that answer, but I needed it said so that everyone heard that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And yeah, absolutely.
For the record.
Go ahead, Michael.
Sure. And then in the category of vendors, we've identified 22 agencies that are on the outside agency list, which actually provide direct services which are related to a city department. St. Francis Wildlife is a good example where they provide a service which is complementary to what our animal control provides. So what we've done is basically put those particular agencies in their respective departments, and they will be funded through those department budgets. Then we talk a little bit about the Bridge to CHSP program, which I mentioned, which would be primarily for agencies that would be set up that may not be ready to participate in the CHSP. They needed an opportunity to build their capacity. This would be an opportunity for them, as well as for agencies that may come in an off year through the CHSP cycle. The last thing we're going to recommend is a pool of funding for emergency funding for CHSP agencies. It's that for situations that may occur during the year that are unforeseen and they provide a vital service. And historically, and this has happened, many of you are familiar with, for example, American Second Harvest about 4 years ago went through a crisis. And the city and the county came up with funding. So this would be a process, so we would have a reserve set up to address those kinds of situations when they came up during the course of the year.
Question. In that emergency process, or in that emergency funding, what is the process associated with it? Pat, does it come back to you and the committees, or is this a political decision made at the commission level?
No, I would hope it would be a committee decision.
Great.
And that's what we're trying to do. Everything is try to set up a standardized process, because in order to be transparent, everyone has to know what the rules are.
Correct.
And so, yes, it will be a process that we do with a committee.
That is great. And that's why I wanted to get on the record, because
Yes,
I think that's one of the
absolutely.
reasons why we're here is to have a process and to take the politics out of
Right.
the selection of winners and losers.
Right.
So that's great to know. Okay, Michael.
And the same thing would hold true for the Bridge program as well. We would have a process. We would have a criteria. Now, the staff will develop that criteria. It would have a lower threshold in the CHSP program because that's what it's been meant to help people cultivate themselves to. But there would be a process. There would be minimum standards that protect the city's liability issues and things like that, as well as some service delivery demands as well. And then we will be developing those over the course of the year.
Just to add a little bit to that, in their contract with us, just like I'm doing with the agencies that were transitioned to us recently, we will have basically a capacity building section that looks at every area of their organization that they need to develop and actually create a plan in the contract itself. We will work with that agency to make sure they get all the resources necessary to address those deficits. And remember, what I found with the agencies, they're happy to get that kind of a support. Many of them just don't know, and they've never had the opportunity to get that type of level of technical assistance.
And if I could add to it, the level of, when they reach the level of being a CHSP eligible agency, that opens up a whole additional array of funding opportunities for them because our standards are similar to the standards that the state, the feds, and many foundations would require. Right. So it actually opens a lot more funding opportunities to them as they get through that process.
Excellent. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
And I wanted to say thank you, Pat and Michael, for the process that I've been hearing about in the community from agencies who are receiving this external funding, that you all have embrace them and you're bringing them slowly. You've created a bridge of some sort. Right. I don't know if that's a test pilot or what, but my only concern was that we probably should have told them that coming in because they didn't know what to expect other than what people in the past had shared with them, how it had been done in the past. And so they had made plans between the time that it looked like they were going to be approved until the time of the approval of the budget. They were making staffing decisions and plans and things based on what they had been awarded. And when it didn't happen, like they thought it was going to happen, and it had happened in the past, it caused some adjustments and some things. So they're doing a great job, absolute great job. Just that we got to make sure that we communicate when there's transition or change.
I agree.
We've got to make sure we let them know that so that they can make business decisions based on when their funding is going to come.
Absolutely.
Great. Commissioner Matlow, you have any questions? Commissioner Bryant?
Yes, let me follow up. First, I want to thank, and I know all of you join me in thanking the citizen review teams. I had opportunity to serve on one a long time ago, but it's an awesome, really, opportunity to serve the community. And I just want to start my comments off by saying to all of you, thank you for what you do. And for Pat, I don't know if we need to clone 2 or 3 of Pat.
Put a crown on her head.
Put something, because I know she must be stretched very thin with the current programming. Right. And as we add 3 other components, I would hope that we take into consideration that she might need assistance. My question is that if I am, I have a program, I'm an agency, and you assist me through the Bridge program, and I do well, but I really just don't want to fill out the paperwork or do whatever for the CHSP process. Can I continue to Bridge?
I would say, and we're still developing those standards, but once they're eligible to apply to CHSP, they have to do so.
That's right.
The whole purpose is to help startup organizations, particularly grassroots organizations, develop themselves.
And to complement that, what I was saying, we're suggesting a nominal amount of funding for that. So the idea is as you transition, that you get in the CHSP, then you actually have access to a much larger pool of funding.
We help them with the application, by the way. It's not like we say go out there and just swim by yourselves. I mean, we really tailor the technical assistance to the needs of the individual agency.
Very good. I was hoping that was the answer.
And Commissioner Bryan, I think again, to stress the point that once they qualify for the CHSP, it opens up so many other opportunities for them that it is to their advantage to move in that direction and to get into the pipeline. So
I agree.
And we've got a great process in place to help them do that. Yeah. Any other comment? All right. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, move staff recommendation. Seconded by Commissioner Bryant. On a final note, Pat, thank you once again.
Absolutely.
It is a nationally award-winning program. And I truly believe that this is the next step. And Jeremy, thanks for bringing this up back during the budgeting cycle.
Right.
And this has been a great workshop. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously,
Thank you so much.
5-0. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on item number 3.02. I am going to pass the gavel to the Mayor Pro Tem ever so slightly for I need to step out and speak to a student group. I'll be right back. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you,
wanna
Mr.
key
Mayor
up
Pro
this next
Tem.
presentation?
Commissioners, I'll key this up. I think the last presentation went extremely well. No
It
pressure
did.
to Christian and his staff, but I think they'll be up to the challenge. We're going to move quickly through this. The next item involves the seeking your approval to implement the strategic plan. In just 9 short months, we've been able to produce a document. From what we can tell, our research says it's the first overarching strategic plan that we will have had in our city. As you guys know, we have many master plans and strategic plans spread across our organization. The city organization as a
Mr. City
whole.
Manager, can we ask if you could, we're having a hard time hearing up here, so as you exit, if you would do so quietly, please. Thank you. All right, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir, of course. Good stuff. But this document truly represents really a move to the future to give us good guidance and direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on your leadership. It's predicated, the strategic plan is predicated on 7 goals that you have provided us leadership and guidance on that are important to our community. I would like to underscore this is a living document. While we put this in place, and it's a 5-year window with 5-year targets, that this will change from time to time. There are targets that may change from time to time as we evolve, but I'm very proud of it. I think it's very well done. Christian Doolin and his team have done a good job. They've worked with our department directors. They've got a lot of community feedback, and we're now at the point to present it to you. So with all that said, I'm going to turn it over to Christian and have him walk us through it and take your questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we do have one speaker. If you want to take him before, that'd be great, or if you want to take him
Let's
after.
do that.
Okay. The only speaker we have on this item is Stanley Sims. I don't see anybody else looking to bring a speaker card this morning.
All right, Mr. Sims, give us your name and address.
Stanley Sims, still at the same old little shack, 1320 Avondale.
Thank you, sir.
I neglected to bring this up in the last thing, so I'm a little cheating a little bit here, Reese, so forgive me. But the other thing that I also wanted to recommend, and you all know that I am a champion for fair wages. Mm-hmm. And so, and it's a little hypocritical because in my eyes, the city of Tallahassee is not one that is a fair wage employer. And so I would really love to see for our nonprofit organizations to, in that language, that they, because 9 times out of 10, the nonprofit employees, they hire people from in that community. And with the stringent of budgets, because they're trying to do good, if the city of Tallahassee put in that clause where there is a fair labor thing and the city would follow it as well, would be a very good economic boost for not only the nonprofits, but for the clients they serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Good. Okay. Mr. City Manager?
There may be one.
Okay, we do have
One
another.
more speaker, sir.
All right. Talitha, if you, Ms. Edwards, if you would go ahead and approach the microphone and you can turn your speaker card in. Okay.
Sorry, I thought I missed that opportunity. Thank you, Commission. I did email you all comments. The strategic plan has been wonderfully put together. I just went through it, and as a community, there were spaces that I thought in the plan that we could make sure was in black and white, so that when we go back and we're saying we're going through the numbers of the strategic plan, or we did that in the strategic plan, let's put it there. Mainly, we saw a lot of talk about the disconnected youth, and the youth here, we didn't see a lot on the front end about adult job training and vocational things, and I think those things need to be reflected, because if we're looking at quality of life and impact on poverty. Those things are happening now. And so we need to address those things now, and it should be reflected, I think, visually in the plan. And a second major thing, you all, like I said, I already have the email, is that maybe suggestion if we print only the objectives, right, so that lay people can just look at the objective, because it's beautiful on the front end, but the real meat and potatoes of the plan is those objectives and what we're working towards. And so, yeah, I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Christian,
Okay,
if
Christian.
you'll begin.
Thank you. So, Commissioners, what you have in front of you is the final draft of the city's first ever 5-year strategic plan. So based on your direction and leadership, this strategy lays out the targets that we are going to be able to measure ourselves by to ensure that we meet your vision. Why is this important? There are a few reasons. First is the vision itself. You have put forward a vision recommended by the working group of staff and citizens. It's important that we understand how our services are going to support a strong community and vibrant neighborhoods, that we are the catalyst for economic growth and innovation in the region, that we're inclusive in our services across the diversity of our entire community, and that we protect our precious natural resources and unique Tallahassee character. The 7 goals, 27 objectives, and 135 strategies, the targets, the initiatives laid out in the plan are mapped to achieve your vision. Now, that may seem like a lot, but we have been very intentional to focus on impact, urgency, alignment to your priorities, while relying on the department strategies for operational metrics that will then get into the how of these citywide targets. Second reason this is important is this is the first organization-wide strategic plan in the history of the organization. And third, this finally lays out a path forward for who we want to be when we are 200 years old. So that 200-year anniversary is going to be more than an event and a celebration. This will assure that when we celebrate, it will be about more than a number. It will be about who we are. I need to acknowledge several groups without whom this effort would not be possible. The first is the staff and the citizens that were on the Mission, Vision, Value Working Group. So if you are in the audience, I would appreciate if you could stand up. And I know if Talithia is still here, she was also on it.
She had to leave.
Okay, I appreciate your participation. And second, my team, who has worked tirelessly for 9 months to pull this together very quick. So behind me, if you could stand. So Anna Guerra, Diana Gallego, Justin Painter, and Jason Lawrence have worked tirelessly for 9 months. And finally, the majority of my colleagues in the back of the room and here, the directors of this city who have worked with us along the way through multiple meetings each to put forth targets with executive team direction in the plan. That's the what. The how of this plan is also significant. So why is the how we did this significant? We engaged thousands of residents and people over 9 short months to inform this final draft. Organization strategies can take a long time to develop, and it also might not include ongoing participation in broad input beyond an initial listening session. Based on your direction and best practices, we've actively sought extensive community engagement of thousands along the way. The working group of 15 met 8 times. Hundreds of direct interactions across dozens of field events. A survey of over 2,400 residents and neighbors on strengths and opportunities areas that form the targets that you see in this plan. We've had a public strategy workshop with you and your input, as well as several commission updates. And then most recently, we posted this final draft online. Since then, the plan has been downloaded 919 times. And it's been viewed more than 1,000 times on the site. That only counts our site. We are unable to track where people link directly to the PDF. This is, as the city manager said, a living document. It will require ongoing measurement and continued reporting. Community engagement is not the end, it is the means. The community engagement not only ensures we are aligned with the priorities and the values of this community, but it's going to support the community access necessary to build the confidence and credibility in the local government. In the weeks since this draft has been posted, multiple cities have reached out to expressing their interest in modeling their planning efforts on this approach. And specifically, they've called out the placement of community engagement at the center of our strategic planning approach, as well as how we've tailored several industry best practice strategic planning frameworks to a customized one for our community. This report's a living document and one that will be monitored continuously and reported annually, and is laid out across your priority areas. Those include economic development, the impact of poverty, organizational effectiveness, public infrastructure, public safety, public trust, and quality of life. So I will dive briefly into each one of these, and I'm looking forward to a long road. We've met so many times. I'm very much looking forward to your comments today. So for economic development, this strategy sets a goal of advancing our city as a competitive, innovative, and sustainable regional economic hub. And to do that, thank you. We're focused in three areas: infrastructure, new and emerging industries, and the airport. Modern infrastructure is the catalyst for growth in our community, period. Targets within this section are going to position our community as a competitive and attractive location for businesses. New industries, we're going to continue to look to diversify beyond public and education sector to strengthen the resiliency of our economy. And then the airport is an incredible asset to drive our economy, and the strategy includes many targets, among them TLH having a $1 billion impact on our local economy. And for those who are tracking, it's around 600 million right now. We'll know the city is a competitive, innovative, and sustainable regional economic hub through the achievement of the targets laid out in the plan. For the impact of poverty, the city aims to be a leading partner that connects residents to resources that remove economic and social barriers. We will address this priority through multiple objectives focused on education, training, and job readiness, which is what Talithia just gave some feedback on, existing housing and new affordable housing, health and wellness initiatives, supporting education of key groups like our disconnected youth, rehabilitating hundreds of existing homes, facilitating the creation of hundreds additional new affordable homes. Will ensure that we are tracking to the targets that link to this priority in your vision. Organizational effectiveness, thank you, is focused on professionalism, effectiveness, efficiency within our internal operations, with a target of being impact-focused workforce that is inclusive, pioneering, and tech-driven. That happens in 4 ways: people, process, technology, and financial strength. To position ourselves to attract and retain top talent, we're setting targets like 60 days from advertisement to offer, and reducing turnover to 6.5% across the city. As we see in multiple departments that are acknowledged as leading in the industry, we know that mapping processes is a key step in identifying redundancies and opportunities to improve effectiveness. We want to extend that across to every department. And then finally, knowing we are maintaining the organization's excellent financial strength will be achieved through targets that we are hitting now: AA rating on our bonds, 90% funded general employee pension. Within public infrastructure, we've set 2 objectives. First is to be a leading publicly owned utility that supports a growing and progressive community. So what does that look like? Customer satisfaction ratings of 85% or higher, 99% availability of services over these 5 years, and metrics like 40 minutes or less customer outage for our electric utility. That will also include environmental stewardship through initiatives like the adoption of a clean energy plan during this period, ensuring the safety and cleanliness of our drinking water. And then we'll move to the next public infrastructure goal, which will be supporting connected transit networks. This strategy is going to set a goal of efficient public transit network supported by connected roads, sidewalks, amenities, and public transportation. And we'll do that through focusing on enhancing our network of roads, bike lanes, sidewalks, and also ensuring transit is accessible, efficient, and equitable with strategic initiatives like constructing the South City Transit Center and Transportation Hub at CK Steel during the period of this plan. For public safety, our focus on public safety sets the bar at being a safe, resilient, and inclusive community. This area has an extensive list of 6 objectives, including community-based solutions, preventative measures and public awareness, training and readiness of our public safety employees, state-of-the-art tech, community preparedness, modern facilities. And the targets underneath those objectives include a key focus on how we partner with our neighborhoods through initiatives that ultimately result in additional achievement of targets like the reduction of vehicle burglaries by 15%, or the reduction of violent crime by 10% over the period of this strategic plan. Additionally, the completion of the construction of a new public safety campus by 2024 would be another target we would celebrate at the end of the plan. Among public trust, we seek to enhance the public's trust beyond the credibility and confidence that we already see in the customer satisfaction ratings we see in our services. This strategy sets important targets that will build ethical practice and transparency in the organization through targets like continued 100% compliance on ethics training and adopting a no-gift policy for all employees within the next 5 years. We also have included data sharing in this area, which would be both with the public and across agencies in important key areas like public safety. And finally, for quality of life, we have a goal of being a creative, inclusive community with beautiful public places that protect and promote our resources and our uniquely Tallahassee culture. To do this, we will do this in 3 ways. The network of our parks, greenways, and trails, unique neighborhoods, and the awareness and promotion of attractions and events that make us a destination culture, a destination community in Tallahassee. That will include 100% of residents within a 10-minute walk of a park or an open space, 100 parks by our 200th anniversary, 50 new sidewalks in this time, and maintaining our canopy at 55% over the period. Management is measurement. These 135 draft targets convey the initial breadth and depth of our organization's impact on the community. And this strategy lays out the foundation for our community's future, how we're going to achieve your vision, and the roadmap for becoming our mission, the nation's leader in the delivery of public service. I look forward to the hopeful adoption and definitely any feedback you have.
Mr. Cook, do we have any other public comment?
We do not.
Excellent. Let's open it up for discussion and comment.
Mr.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Prior to our adopting this document, Mr. Mayor, I know that through our ethics board recommendations and our workshop coming up later this month, we're going to be talking about and discussing the no gift policy. And I don't know, Madam Attorney, you may be able to better advise us on how we do that. But I would suggest, and I don't know if you want to do it as a motion, Mr. Mayor, or just a recommendation, that we take out that objective 6A number 4, which speaks to the strategic initiative to adopt a no-gift policy for all city employees until we've had that discussion at the ethics workshop later this month.
Okay, fair enough. So let's take it to a 30,000-foot view right now, first and foremost. I know that the recommendation is for final adoption today.
Right.
But as the Mayor Pro Tem just mentioned, there's going to be a couple of suggestions for consideration. My point is, should we set at a future meeting, either the November meeting for final adoption, so we have one more round of suggestions that were made today to bring them back into the fold? That would also give us opportunity to see what happens at the meeting regarding the ethics package and clean it up. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Mr. Mayor, that's perfectly fine. If you want to give us direction to incorporate, we can do that as well. If you want to see it again, we will do that. I do anticipate some updates from your comments today.
Sure.
I know at a minimum the organizational chart that's in this particular draft needs to be updated.
Okay.
Right? So there'll be things that we revise. Yeah. I don't see any issue with that at all. We're obviously anxious to put this in motion. So we'll gladly take your feedback today, put it in motion in this, bring it back for final sanction.
Okay.
Yeah, 6A, number 4, objective 6A.
6A4. Okay. Other comments, questions? Commissioner Williams-Cox, then Commissioner Bryant.
One of the things that I made note here was to, I know that the strategic plan is a living document, but to set some milestones for reviewing it, to see where we are, how we're doing, because I know this was put together for the future. We're looking towards where we want to be in 2024, but in order to get there, we've got to make these steps in that direction. So what I would like to recommend that we go ahead and identify some touch points as to where we're going to be to monitor this, because, you know, what gets monitored gets measured and it gets done. So I'm thinking once it is adopted, let's have a 6-month review on where we are, how things going, because if things are not, we have things in here that are ambitious and they should be, But if there are things that are not happening, we don't see anything moving in that direction. It would need some intervention. It would either need some catalyst, or we're going to need to make a change. So if we can look at it in a 6-month window to see where we are, to see if something needs to be tweaked, changed, or taken out, I think we should do that. And then I think we should look at it again in the first year to see how how things look in that first year. And then after that, we can then go to like a quarterly review and report out where we are on this and an annual review leading up to 2024. I just want us to be real surgical, strategic, pardon the pun, about how we monitor this strategic plan, because there have been many plans that we've blown the dust off to try to make this one work. So we want this one to be different. And I'd also like to see from the other plans that were in place, we talked about these at the retreat, some of that came here. I'd like to see where it came from, some type of correlation back to the plan that it came from, because there may be, we spent money on it, we did something. So let's look at how that translated or rolled over into here. Just something to touch back to where it came from. Is that possible?
Absolutely, I look forward to that. And the truth is, there are going to be those metrics that came from other plans, and we have them adopted here.
Okay.
And then there are net new metrics. We are looking to elevate and continue to advance further. And literally, we will begin to, based on your adoption, we will begin to operationalize our efforts and implementation against that. So where we can tie those, we are eager to put that in front and make sure you understand those connections. And then there may be some that we are building kind of a net new area for impact, of reorganizing multiple departments to focus in one area.
Right.
So you'll kind of see different levels of competency in achievement of certain targets.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Williams-Cox, I couldn't agree with you more on checking in. I want to ask the city manager to comment as well.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I appreciate those comments. I think what you have expressed is exactly what we see this plan enabling us to do, almost like a dashboard. Clearly, from my perspective, as I work directly with the departments and focus in our efforts, how do we measure ourselves? How do we track ourselves? And so these templates don't exist. This plan is the jumping off point to do that. I would think, I would recommend this in terms of process. You have your annual retreat scheduled in January. That'll be here pretty quickly. We may not have a lot of progress on these, but I think it'll be a good check-in point to talk to you about how we anticipate showing that progress, which measures may be more fluid than others that we can reflect in a dashboard setting. If it's appropriate, then a few months later we can check in kind of a midterm, since this is year one, progress. And then certainly, without any doubt, over the course of this 5 years, each year, this becomes the foundation for your retreat and your priority setting. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good, very good.
Commissioner Bryant.
Yes, thank you. Let me first commend you, because I know what effort has been put into making this what it is. I think Ms. Edwards hit on a point that I was going to bring up, that when a layperson picks up this document, they should be able to distinguish between a strategic initiative and an objective and whatever the metric is. And as we have it laid out right now, initiatives are interwoven with actual goals. So one of the first questions I asked myself was, as I was reading through, are there goals linked to initiatives? Which there are, but they don't follow the initiative in each of the areas. That's one concern of mine. I can link them up if I read them and, rearrange it. So when we start to, in a year from now, well, really in 6 months, 3 months, try and determine how are we doing, we're going to have something that's laid out in a way that we can actually quickly see the connectivity. That's the first thing. Then secondly, I would suggest strongly that we look at our goals and make sure that they are achievable, period. There are a couple goals that I don't know how we would do it or why we would do it, furthermore. And if you want to ask me about one, I have several. I pointed this out already, but under the impact of poverty, there is a goal to have fresh food within 1 mile of residence where people live. Well, no, I don't think we can do that. All over Tallahassee, many residents, I don't think we can have a food source within 1 mile, right? I mean, I'd love for that to be, but that's not realistic. And you know goals need to be smart. So that's just one. There are several, and I'll be glad to go through it at a later time, that are within this document that are not, I don't think, realistic. And you may come back and say, yes, it is, Elaine, and this is why. And I'd be glad to hear that. I just can't see it right now. The other thing is, we should have a section, I guess, that outlines things that we're doing that are of major importance to us that we want to wave the flag over. I mean, the one that says continue providing free bus passes to our area students, that's awesome that we do that, and many people don't know it. So this is a good way to advertise that this is something we're doing, but it's really not a goal because it's already achieved. It's something that we're already doing and we should be proud of. And there are several of those in here that I'd like for us to pull out and kind of, wave the flag over, that we're doing a great job at that. So I'll leave it at that. There are some other things, but I think that, especially as Ms. Edwards brought it up, that we need to focus in on making this document aligned in a very strategic way such that people can follow it. Those are my comments, but great job.
All right, Commissioner Matlow.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your work on the project. I think this serves as a good bedrock for the foundation of kind of where we want to go. We mentioned it's a living document. We know this commission's pretty nimble in some of the decisions they make, but I think this kind of starts the guiding process. I do agree with the 6-month check-in. I think it would come at a great time, especially when we get into budget negotiations for the following year and we're not bogged down by outside funding for hours and hours. It would be helpful to have a check-in with the strategic plan. I wanted to point out there were lots of questions. I believe you got the email too from Ms. Edwards. I don't want to go through them now, but if we can get those kind of answered for her before it comes back. But one of the ones, a couple of them that really stuck out is really where we're putting our baseline, and it's hard to tell on because several of them we mentioned fresh food sources within 1 mile. I'm not sure where the baseline, how far neighborhoods are right now. That may be very hard to achieve, but a lot of the things in the strategic plan we've already achieved. If you look at broadband connection of 25 megabytes or less, I think we're already at 100%, and we have a goal of 99%. I don't think that type of goal is nearly aggressive enough. One of the things she mentioned was Habitat for Humanity houses, and if we can be more aggressive on that. So I think there's things that we can pull out to know if we're being aggressive or not, but without being able to see the baseline in the document, without going one by one, I wouldn't really be able to tell you. So I think that information would be helpful for us to just be informed so we can measure the process as we get there. Secondly, my biggest issue that I'd like to see us work more on as the document develops over the next year or 2 years is really strengthening our position on how we're targeting the impact of poverty. I think there's a lot of good metrics in the document now, but I almost think we can pull that out as a set aside and get to work collectively and come up with a real plan, because we're making benchmarks, but how do we address the overall poverty rate? How do we address infant mortality? How do we address affordable housing and those things, and really get metrics for those and get the overall scope? Because what I don't want to see is in 5 years, we're at the exact same poverty rate. We hit some metrics, which are great, but if we're not increasing the situation for individual people's lives, I'm not sure if we really got there. So aside from this plan's conversation, I'd like to have a plan, start a conversation about how we can sit down and plan for poverty specifically and really dive into that issue either as some sort of target committee or planning group.
Excellent. Good points. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Just Mayor Pro Tem.
In response to Commissioner Matlow, I'm not sure that the City of Tallahassee, Commissioner, could be held accountable for reducing poverty in the city. I'm not sure. I think with all of the organizations that we had represented here today, working with them, that's how we reduce. But
Dr. Holofield, please.
I'm not sure that the city itself can be held responsible for reducing poverty. That's going to have to be a community-wide effort, embracing our neighborhoods, our not-for-profit organizations. And what I agree with is the committee that you talked about, that we have metrics as a city that we try to achieve. But in terms of poverty generally, that's something that all of us, the healthcare industry, the business community, our nonprofits, city and county government, our universities, all of us are going to have to embrace and work on together. I wouldn't want anyone to believe that the city of Tallahassee itself can reduce poverty throughout the city of. Do you understand?
But
I agree with the committee that you're talking about to bring together to address that from an overall city perspective. But I wouldn't want anyone to leave thinking that city government can be responsible for reducing poverty.
Sure, and I'm not putting it all on our shoulders by any means. I understand it's a community-wide initiative and would love to bring in those partners as we go, but I do think there are things that can guide City of Tallahassee spending that can have a direct impact on things that fall under the category of poverty. So if the goal of the overall poverty percentage gives you pause, that's fine. I just want to dig down into individual real metrics of things that are affecting individuals' lives that we can get stronger goals on and really push harder on.
Okay.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
On that same point, I think I understand, too, where Commissioner Matlow was going. We as a city, we need to be able to say what we did to do our part. And if we're providing funding to an organization, then it's our responsibility to keep track of what they're doing. And if what they're doing is impacting poverty, and if so, by what percentage point, so that we can say, well, we donated $100, and for $100, these kids were, for example, exposed to additional reading tools to help with the third grade reading level, because that's going to help with poverty. So I think we got to be, again, strategic in what we're doing and not just throwing it out there and say, oh, yeah, as I've heard this said before when I was on the other side, that, oh, yeah, everybody's getting their fair share. But you can't just throw money at a problem and go away. You've got to stay engaged, make sure what needs to be happening is happening, and that we're getting good returns on the taxpayer dollars that's going out there. So I think that I can agree that we do want to make sure that we're doing our part as a partner, but we've got to hold individuals accountable. But then everything that we do doesn't have to cost money. We all can mentor. We all can go, work in a neighborhood. We can volunteer. All of those things will help with poverty, because when people see folks who are in government out here doing things and working, that gives children and adults an opportunity to say, yeah, we matter. So, yeah, we need to be on our best behavior because, the mayor's going to be coming to the school today and, that kind of thing. So we are responsible for parts of it, and we can do our part.
Excellent. I think these are all great comments. Yeah, Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, and so, I'd just like to put that into the motion that we form a committee to come up with some specific recommendations that can address poverty, invite community members into it. I would be happy to serve on such a committee and any other commissioners who would like to do so as well.
Here's what I would suggest, and of course, first of all, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded. What I would actually suggest is you are forming a formal committee before the plan has actually been formally adopted. I would postpone that motion to the next meeting where it's appropriate. In fact, every strategic initiative probably should have some type of a committee that deals with those specifics so that you're creating the metrics, we have the base plan, let's create the roadmap to move forward. But the motion on the table formally creates a committee before we actually have a formal strategic plan in place. So that's the comments. Commissioner Bryant.
Yes, and we've pulled out poverty, but every one of our initiatives need to have accountability.
Correct.
Herein lies why we need strategic goals that set accountability measures and people responsible. So I don't know if are we trying to take over and create committees that, in fact, should be governed through the strategic planning process to hold people accountable to do what it is we say we're going to do. So I really thought what Mr. Matlow was doing was just pulling out this particular one and asking that a committee be set, not in direct conflict with the strategic plan, because you still, for every initiative, need to have some sense of accountability for things we say we're going to do. So I'll kick this back to him. Are you saying that we need this for everything, or just because of your interest in poverty?
Commissioner Matlow.
Yeah, and for me, it's because of my interest in poverty and that specific item. I think we can form a committee that would come back with recommendations in the future. So knowing that we're going to adopt this plan in November and not ask for changes yet, but as this plan, maybe a year from now, come back with some recommendations of how it could go further. So I don't think it would be in conflict with adopting the plan. I do agree there may be some other items that people want to work on specifically, and I think we can take that. I don't know if we need one for each individual metric unless we want one. Just for me personally, I would like to see a focus on this one, so that's why I'd like to go ahead and keep that motion on the floor to start the committee.
Sure. I still think we're premature. I would rather take the motion up in November with the form. I mean, Elaine brought up some substantial changes that she still wants to work on, even pulling. Commissioner Bryant, excuse me.
That's okay.
It's a workshop. We're a little informed.
All right.
Commissioner Bryant, Dr. Bryant brought up some substantial changes to the plan that we haven't even formally adopted. Commissioner Matlow, I would still suggest, and we can take a vote on the motion, I would still suggest that we come back in November, finalize this document, and then move forward with the committee. And again, I think we should form a committee for each one of the targeted areas and figure out how to move forward from there, and go from there. That's my thought process.
Okay, well, let's do this. I'll withdraw that motion and have a motion that when it comes back in November, we have an item that lays out how we can form those committees and participation on each item.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess my only hesitation is that it kind of feels like we're doing this on the fly. And this strategic plan wasn't put together on the fly. It was very methodical, lots of public input. And when I say it sounds like it's being done on the fly, we don't know what these committees will look like, what their charge will be, who will serve on them. I would be real hesitant to vote on a committee when I don't have some details to that effect to vote on. I think that there will be plenty of opportunity. I mean, we could do it at our retreat when we've got a little more information. We could do it at the 6-month point where we've got a little more information. But just to say we want a committee for each initiative and not
that was not the motion.
Fleshing that out.
That was not the motion. The motion was on poverty.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
It was on poverty, not each. The mayor was suggesting possibly each initiative.
Well, even, Commissioner, even if you just want to look at poverty, I mean, so what is this committee going to look like? Who's going to serve on it? What will be its mission and objectives? And we're going to vote on this?
Good questions, if I may. I think I feel Commissioner Matlow's spirit, because I too have grown impatient with moving the needle on poverty. And you've heard me say this time and time again. While we wait to get it all together, poverty is still running rampant and increasing. So I think what he is saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth. The reason I supported the motion is because I feel the urgency as well. While we're trying to figure it all out, we already know some things about poverty because some of us have come from it and some of us still live in it. So we have resident experts on what it is, where it exists. It's concentrated in a certain census tract. 304 is dealing with it. A lot of people are dealing with it, but we're dealing with it in silos. So We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed. I think what we're saying is, let's start. Let's start. And many times we build a plane while we're flying it. Many times. But this time we have a baseline. We know where poverty is. I can take you there. You know, we're practically neighbors. But so I think what Commissioner Matlow is saying, and I support the motion, wherever it goes, we've got to get started. And if it's after this has been adopted, that's great. But what is documented in here is what they pulled from the neighborhood already. So it exists. We're not creating a new thing. There's a committee already out there, several.
Well, and I think it's important, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Bryan. I think it's important that we do pull all the interested groups together. And I think that we are all ready to move forward and start working. For instance, you have the 32304 summit that's going on, and we're about to have the second community summit coming up in, another week or so. So it's important that we pull all interested parties and all initiatives together so we're not working in silos. And I think this is a natural next step to come back and have staff kind of put together the process of how to move forward with the committees. I think it's great. Yeah, Dr. Bryant.
I think the motion on the floor was just to postpone this decision until the next time we meet. Is that right? That we'd vote on it then?
Well, it's my understanding, Commissioner Matlow, correct me, is that number one, we are kind of given the blessing of we're at a good spot right here, but we still have some work to do. Bring it back in November for final ratification, but also come back and bring us some ideas of how to put together a structure to move forward, a committee structure, if you will, Commissioner Matlow, on how to move forward upon final adoption of each one of our strategic initiatives. And how are we going to move forward with this? Does that capture the spirit, Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, that's close by. You know, Commissioner Richardson mentioned, what the city of Tallahassee is able to do versus what the community is able to do. So, my goal for a committee would be how can we push harder on the topic of poverty? So as far as what that committee would look like, to me, it would look like any commissioner who would want to serve on it and the relevant staff we have, strategic planning, and those sorts of people at the table and having a more conversation of how we can dig deeper, and then how the city can address different community partners to also push for the same initiative.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. Any further comment on the motion on the table? Seeing none.
Okay, explain to me what is the motion again?
We've got, correct me if I'm wrong, let me see if I can pull it all together. So what we have is a great check-in, but we're not ready for final adoption today.
Right. We're
going to bring it back in November. Christian, I encourage City Manager, you and your team, check in with the commissioners, okay? Let's try to tighten it up, see if we can come to a document where we have opportunity for final approval in November. At the same time, Mr. Manager, we are looking for the next steps on how to move forward in each one of our targeted areas. And if you could bring some recommendations on a committee structure or some options on how to move forward to get the work going, that'd be fantastic. Did I get the spirit in the letter of your motion, Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
Excellent. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Christian and your team, fantastic job. Hey, if it was easy, we'd be done many months ago. This is a very important document and next step, and we appreciate everything that y'all are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned till 4 o'clock for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting.
Great.
Yeah, you get a break. Go to the bathroom.